Sweet. Awesome, man. Thank you guys for jumping in and tuning in to another episode of Expert Mentors Live. This is episode 32, and super excited to have Andrew on with us today and really share some amazing nuggets. I've had the opportunity to be kind of firsthand seeing this transpire over the last 5-6 years, and so it's really been cool. And then had another opportunity to see him, share it at this past mastermind in Key West. And I was like, oh man, this is just absolute gold. And appreciate him bringing it to all of us here at within the Honey Badger Nation and, here on Expert Mentors Live. So if you guys are tuning in for the first time, maybe this is your first episode of Expert Mentors Live. Expert Mentors Live is really tapping into the horsepower that we have inside of Honey Badger Nation, Fast Forward Movement, and really just taking the people that have tremendous value to add, that really want to add value back to the community, and in a way that we can share it and capture it and leverage it for many years to come. So man, buckle up, make sure that you guys grab your notepad. You're really going to want to stay tuned, and I promise you'll have plenty of notes and plenty of excitement, and you'll be ready for us to get this episode back up so you can rewatch it several times. So man, Andrew, thank you, bud, for taking the time and jumping on with us, and really looking forward to today's episode.
Yeah, man. Thank you. I appreciate it. It's exciting to be here. You guys, you're bringing some great content, awesome value, and I can't thank you enough for inviting me on, and we're looking forward to getting after it today.
Let's get after it, man. I know you've got a great presentation put together, so I'm going to just let you rock and roll and run with it.
Yeah. So really, I don't know, John, if you want me to kind of give a little bit of a backstory and, how we started. Well, first of all, how much time do we have?
We've got an hour, so we're good, man. I think,
Okay.
I think you telling the story and we'll give some context to it and kind of really how this was born, right? And really,
Right.
How it got started.
Sure. Yeah, no problem. Can you guys hear me okay?
I got you. If you guys can hear us, just give us a thumbs up in the chat.
Yeah, let me know also if we're having a little bit of I'm in the lower end of the office here, so if I need to get closer to the actual router, let me know, because
Cool.
sometimes it's sketchy.
We got thumbs up. We're good, man.
Good. Okay, cool. So, well, first of all, guys, just to give you a little bit of a background, I know a lot of you, but a lot of those of you that don't know me, I'm in the Dayton, Ohio market. I do northern Cincinnati, and the Dayton area is kind of our main markets that we work in, and that includes several areas that are in an outlining area. So I'm in two separate markets specifically. One would be the Lake Lockengrid market, which is a community that's a resort community. Not resort community, but it feels like a resort community. It's a community that has about 1,500 homes, and that's one of the areas that's in an area called Eaton, Ohio, which is about 45 minutes from our main market. And that specific market is kind of the outlying market for the Dayton region. But for the most part, we're in the Dayton area. I've been selling real estate for, it's been almost 20 years. I was on with Mike Wall yesterday, for those of you guys who saw that. And I was kind of shocked to think about how long I've had my license. So
Yeah.
It means I'm getting old. Yeah. So long story short, we've been at it for a while. It's been a good run. And what I want to share with you guys is a little bit of the story on, what we do in addition to probably what most of you guys are already doing. And for us, we sell real estate just like everybody else. Our main team is a team of 12 to 13 agents. We're kind of a regional team, so we spread out over several cities within the Dayton area. And, our model looks just like many of the team models. We have a transaction coordinator. We've got an operations guy. We got buyer agents and seller agents. And most of our team members actually do both. They represent buyers and sellers. But so for the most part, we operate as a normal team. However, what we've tried to do is do kind of a subset of our business, and really the core of how we started was through really hyper local marketing in specific areas that we found are good neighborhoods. And it kind of started by accident. I was a pretty successful agent in Richmond, Indiana, selling real estate just like everybody else. And then I came across this opportunity to really farm an area that I felt was really ripe for a lot of growth and the opportunity that it fit really well with my core values, or not core values, but my lifestyle. And so we started really focusing on that area. And by doing so, we learned a lot along the way. And every time we unturned a rock to find gold, we found another avenue to maybe make it a little bit better. So that's kind of a brief background and of how, what our business looks like. We do roughly 250 deals a year. Hopefully do a little bit more than that this year, and anywhere between 40 and 50 million. So we're not doing 1,000 units like some of the guys, but we're just an average team that's kind of that's kind of plugging along and struggling to try to find the next level to get to us. And I think we found kind of a neat opportunity within the hyperlocal marketing. So to get right into that,
yeah,
I'll share with you, Don, a little story that I shared at Mastermind down in Key West.
This is a good one.
And now you're overselling it. But yeah, so basically, so I was 21, 22 years old, just purchased a lake house, and I had no money. It was kind of my lifelong goal. I watched, this is another, I don't know if I shared this in Key West, but I watched my neighbor, as I grew up. I used to stow away in their car because his parents had a lake cottage in northern Indiana, and I loved going up there and just hanging out. They were nice enough to let me jump in the back of their station wagon, and I'd spend the weekend with them. But just to see how their family kind of interacted, it was almost like a family compound. They had aunts and uncles and cousins, and you never knew who was going to show up, and nobody really cared if you were there or you weren't. Everybody had a good time. Well, I wanted that from an early age, and I wanted to get that before we started having children. And so I kind of had my priorities right at the time, in my opinion, even though others would say they were off whack for them. But for me, that was important. Well, in doing so, I ended up buying this house, which on a lake. I actually purchased it with my parents. It's a double family home, and it gave me the opportunity to probably get into a community before I could really afford it. But by doing so, I knew nobody in the community. I literally knew nobody. I was barely able to buy a very dilapidated pontoon that I didn't know that it would work half the time. So the first weekend, so the story starts out, the first weekend I'm at the lake, we kind of moved stuff in. Actually, the weekend before we moved stuff in, the first really weekend I was there by myself. It was nighttime, it was about midnight, and I was getting ready to go to bed. And I kind of walked past, the windows at the lake, and I see this little flicker of light out there. And I'm like, man, there's somebody on the lake. And those of you who know me, I'm a fairly social guy, so I'm like, I feel fear of missing out is my big challenge in life. And so I'm thinking, God, there's somebody out there. I wonder who that could be. Man, I got to go see what's going on. So I, kind of throw my shoes on, I run down, and I can't see him anymore, but I can see the boats kind of traveling off in the distance. So I jump on the pontoon and I head out. And I'm about maybe quarter mile from my house, and on the left-hand side, I see this big bonfire going on. And man, there were four guys. There's actually four guys standing around a bonfire, and they were singing an acapella. They were singing the Brady Bunch song. Like, here's the story, the whole deal, loud as they could be. Obviously, they were drinking, having a good time. And I was like, man, I don't know about this lake. If that's the kind of stuff that's going on here, I just came out of college, and we were, doing other things. So the bottom line was I passed them up, and I was heading down towards the lake. It got really, really misty and kind of foggy near the dam. And it's not a huge lake. It's about 2.5 miles long. So I get down there and I hear this laughing and everybody's having a good time, but I couldn't see them. Well, it kind of reminded me of a movie. Like I was like rolling up in the mist, right? And as I'm coming in, I hear this, hey man, come over here. And I look, and I'm about 10, 15 feet away where I can start to see who's all out there. There was about 18 boats tied up. And they were all in a line. It was a big flotilla, and they were all pontoons and just kind of ratty looking boats. And just, immediately I was like, oh shit, what did I get myself into?
Yep.
They were
already out now.
I was in, I couldn't turn away because, they obviously knew that I was the only other boat out there on the lake, and they're like, come on in, son. So I was like, oh, here we go. So I pulled up, and long story short, it was a pretty interesting crew, meaning there was all sorts of different ages. There were different, you could tell there were some rough characters, and there were some, hell, there was even some families out there that I couldn't believe would be out there at, 12:30 in the morning. But I knew that it was probably a little bit, I didn't know if I was going to be welcome or not. And I didn't know if I got on that boat, if I'd ever get off the boat, right? So basically I pull up and they tie me up. And the first thing that this guy, Jim Gann, who I kid you not, he was with Jimmy Hoffa the night before Jimmy Hoffa disappeared. He owned a big crane company, a rough guy, was an enforcer back in the day. Well, he's the guy that greets me. He's like, son, I hope you like to drink. And I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, well, you're going to take a drink of this. And he hands me this bottle of Jägermeister or whatever it was. And I kind of had that decision whether I'm either going to, kind of duck and run or I'm going to try to figure this thing out, right?
What am I going to do?
Well, flash forward about, I don't know, it's 12 hours later. Here I am, I'm waking up in the morning and I have all these flashes that are going through my head of the night. And it's kind of coming back a little foggy to me. And I get up and I'm like, man, this is great. So I go outside and it's beautiful on the lake and I'm the only one there. And everybody's kind of just quiet. And next thing you know, this boat comes by and I'm down by the dock and he says, hey, we'll be over in about an hour. And I'm like, oh, crap. Number one, I remember the guy, but I don't really remember him. I remember talking to him, and it all started coming. Apparently, I invited the entire flotilla back to my house for a cookout the next day, and didn't think about that was a good idea until the next morning. So, long story short, we had this big party that day. It was great. I had to call my mom to help me bring food. I was like, Mom, you need to help me out because I got to get the house ready. We just had the best time in the world. And there were 2 or 3 lessons that I learned, and it kind of launched my whole philosophy on public events and community and all this stuff. And one of them was, to give back to a community is probably the number one thing that you can do. And you have to give before you get. And in this situation at the time, I didn't know I was going to want to farm that community. I didn't do it with any intentions to give so I could get. I just did it because we were having a good time that night and I invited everybody back. Well, what happened was through that event, it was pretty obvious for me to know that you don't have to have everything just dialed in perfectly to have a great event. I mean, we put together that cookout in about an hour, right? Nobody cared that I had tablecloths. Nobody cared that I had any kind of thing fancy. It was just a get together.
Yep.
So first thing you got to do is just do it, and then you can improve on it as you go. The second thing is that I'm able to meet a lot of people through the event that I wouldn't have had the opportunity to meet for a long time. But that particular evening, I collapsed time. I was able to meet a lot of people at once. And because I gave something to them back, that really fostered a little bit of a relationship with them. And later years down the road, one of the guys that was there with me said, Andrew, you've had a real good run out here and everybody, but one of the things that surprised many of me or myself and my friends that night is that you were willing to invite all these strangers over to your home and you didn't even know us and you were able to entertain us. And that meant a lot, especially considering we were calling you college boy as we watched you move in and you had all these young people at the house. Cause I had all my young friends that were over half my wife was still in college. So she had all her friends out. We weren't even engaged yet. We were just dating at the time, but we had a whole different, we looked different than the average person that was on the lake at the time. And these people were really impressed that I reached out and said, hey, come join me. We're all in this together. So there's some lessons learned on that one night that was kind of by mistake. But at the end of the day, I guess for me, it launched the entire Lake Lochengrin kind of prototype for how we're going to do some hyper-local marketing. And it kind of goes back to some of the things that we're going to talk about real quick here. But that's kind of a summary. I didn't want to go into too much of it, but it is a funny story because we've all been there, right?
Right. And it's amazing. And there's tons of nuggets there for everybody already listening in that, create the space, right? And then get people together. And if you think about it, right, we can all think about things through our lives where things just we threw together at the last minute. And it was some of the best times that we've ever had. And I love what you said there too, about collapsing time within the community by being able to meet more people through that gathering than you would, trying to one off everybody. So man, that was great. And yeah, it absolutely is going to set the stage for what you're about to jump into.
Okay, cool. So So in that whole environment, as we kind of found out that, you know, this might be, first of all, I looked at the market at that point and I was like, you know what, there's a lot of really great people out here, and there's a lot of really, there's a lot of opportunity for growth, because at the time, Lake Lockingren was not known to be the greatest place in the world. I mean, you had a lot of people that were there because of the value. It was cheap to buy a home around this lake. It wasn't they were there because of the benefits the community had to offer. Well, because of that, not a lot of agents wanted to go there and sell. It wasn't something that they saw that had, you know, it's not like it was a prestigious thing to do. Well, so the first thing is to identify the market. And I don't know if you want me to screen share.
Yeah, go ahead and share your screen, because definitely a lot of the things, there's a lot of little nuggets in the presentation that everybody will be able to get a lot of value out of.
Okay, I wonder if I can share. Yeah, here we go. All right, so so basically, can you see that all right, John?
Yeah, it looks great.
Okay, so essentially we've got the fundamentals of, you know, hyper local marketing. And, you know, one of the biggest things for us is, you know, we tried to create what we're trying to do now. I guess I should back this up a little bit in the presentation mode. You know how I started out in that specific neighborhood, but what we've done is we've essentially grown that market to a really nice market share. And in realizing that that's been a big pillar of our income, we said, okay, how do we replicate that into other markets that we want to grow to? And I think that's where this may be very valuable for a lot of our listeners today, that, you know, when you get on here and you can say, okay, this is applicable to a specific neighborhood. It could be a specific demographic group or church group, or, you know, whatever you're doing. I think the principles all apply to everywhere. But for us, we're looking to, our main focus now is to basically find repeatable, proven systems that we can go into, and we can help leverage, you know, basically it into a scalable model with our relationships in the markets. And basically we're adding value to our community, or to our teammates, because yeah, it works great for me in production, and I know that I can do it again because we replicated in another neighborhood. Now, how do we do that with our own teammates to help them become mini mayors? We call it neighborhood mayors is our term for it. So the first thing that, you know, obviously that we have to look at is, you know, where you look at the neighborhood selection, you gotta choose the right neighborhood. We'll go into why and where and how. The other systems that we're trying to implement are, you know, you want to find, you know, a neighborhood that has an identity. You got to create a database. You got to have the websites and the social media. All the marketing that goes and dovetails with all the social media posts that we do. And then the events are what, in my opinion, are the glue that holds everything together. So as you kind of go through here to
Hey, Andrew, can you make your presentation, make it bigger, so that it's a little bit easier to read the slides?
Let me, you know, I don't know. Let me see how I would do that. Is that, I'm not on my computer right now. Is that any better?
Jennifer, is that better?
It's taking up my entire, you know, you guys still, what are you seeing on your end?
I mean, it looks good. Yeah, if you guys give us thumbs up, is that easier? Yes, she said good, sweet.
Okay, perfect. Okay, good. So, so the first thing is, you know, defining quality. And when I talk about that, this is, you know, obviously selecting the right neighborhood or selecting the right demographic. In my opinion, you need an area that is easily identified. You know, does it, you know, in this case, Lockingren, the first one we did, it was a gated community. And that made it really, really easy for us to define the boundaries or the borders. But, you know, there could be other things that could define a community, whether it be an area, town, or, you know, an association or a district or school districts or whatever, that you could say, hey, I live in Black Oak. Well, everybody knows where Black Oak is because that's an identifiable, you know, kind of term for that specific area. So in my opinion, you really want a very identifiable place that you can kind of use, because that's what we're trying to do. You're trying to define yourself as a specialist in that area. Population is really, really important. You know, you need to have homes, in my opinion, in the $500 to $2,000 range, 2,000 home range. When you're doing these postcard productions and everything that you do in terms of your, you know, production for a video or for a party or whatever, it's just as easy to throw a party for, 500 people as it is to throw for 100 people. It's just you scale it a little bit different. And in my opinion, if you're going to reach more and more people, you can do that through the population. So you need to have a decent enough population. And then you have to start looking at the actual characteristics of the neighborhood in terms of the performance, the turnover. We'd like to see at least 15% annually. And that's really kind of a critical point. If it's 10% or 15%, you do the math based on the price point, which is the next line here. And then the velocity of the sales. How quick do they sell? How many days are on the market? You could have, 15% turnover, but if the average days on the market in that particular neighborhood is 6 months, well, guess what? It's going to cost you a lot more money to sell that home as it would be for a neighborhood that might have 100 homes turnover, but the average days on the market is 30. So be smart about where you're going to choose to go, because you're building this market. Choose the market that's going to bear the most fruit. So go to the most fertile ground that you can go to.
Hey, Andrew. So how you got into Lock and Grin, it was because it aligned to your lifestyle, and you mentioned that.
Right.
How critical is that when you're looking at that, right? Some people, they live in a neighborhood and they're just like, man, I want to own my neighborhood. But I mean, if they go through this process, sometimes it might not be the best thing for them to do that.
Yeah, I think you're right. You mean in terms of the alignment with their what they like to do might not be the best thing?
Yeah, just
yeah.
because, I mean, if somebody loves, is there a thing to where even if it does align to your lifestyle, maybe it doesn't make sense? If the numbers don't make sense, should they even mess with it?
Right.
Should they just find another area?
That's a good point. And hey, can you guys actually? I can see you, John, on both sides. Can you guys still see me, or are you just seeing the slides?
I think you're good. I think it should show you when you're speaking. Shows
Okay.
me. You can see both.
All right. Okay. Cool. That's cool. So basically, that was the age-old question: is okay, if we went to another neighborhood, do we go to just a random neighborhood, or do you have some kind of tie-in to that neighborhood? And I'm a firm believer is you have to have a tie-in. Now, if you're a team leader, you have to have somebody within your team that has a tie-in or that is willing to put the work in. And that doesn't mean that you already have an existing, a legacy there. But for example, when we went and we moved and we tried to replicate what we're doing in Lock and Grin in Yankee Trace, which is 45 minutes away, I happened to own a house there, but I did not spend a lot of time there. I didn't know a lot of people. We stayed a lot at the lake, and in the wintertime we were at Yankee Trace, but we weren't out and about a lot in the winter. So it wasn't like I knew a ton of people. I wasn't hanging out. But I knew that I needed to get involved, and we needed to become the neighborhood mayor. How are we going to do that? Well, we focused on it. So to answer your question is, you don't have to have an already existing relationship, but you have to have the ability to earn that relationship and to get involved. And I think that there are a lot of places that people dominate that they don't live there, but they have all the things that we're going to talk about with the social media sites, with the events that they're putting together, they're sponsoring the block parties and all that kind of stuff.
Sweet. Cool. Thank you. I just think that's a slight distinction that everybody kind of gets hung up on. So thanks for clarifying that.
Yeah. And I think to your point too, one of the biggest mistakes is people say, hey, I live in this neighborhood, I'm going to farm this neighborhood. Well, if the neighborhood is not a good performing neighborhood from a statistical standpoint, then get the heck out of it. If it takes a while for it to, the homes to sell, or if it's a neighborhood that has just turned over and that there's a lot of young families that are probably going to be there for the next 7 to 10 years, maybe not the best time of your money spent. So just be critical and think about it. So
yeah, spot on.
Yeah, so no worries. So then the next thing we're going to talk about is the grill in the market. So we went through the turnover and the performance, but you don't want to go into a neighborhood that already has a dominant agent. I mean, that would be the silliest thing that you could do, because you're spending $1 and you might get $1.05 return on your investment, where you could go to the neighborhood next door that does not have that dominant agent that you're not competing against, that you could get it and spend $1 and get $2 out of your investment. Or, we all know neighborhoods that are brand new constructions. I love the new construction neighborhoods that were just built out. They don't have any legacy agents. There's no one there that's been sending postcards for 7 years. buying gifts for people as they move in. It's like wide open. And usually the builder has been, they've got the model home, they've got the agent that works for the builder, and they're out of there. So that's, something to think about is one of those types of neighborhoods. So basically, don't fight the gorilla, try to be the gorilla, I guess is the point there. So if I can, sorry about that. I should have set this thing up for it actually to be a traditional slide, but sorry about that. Okay, I found my arrows.
There you go.
I wanted to do it from this office over here. I'm in Dayton right now because at the lake yesterday was horrible. Okay, so essentially create, this is the first thing you want to lead with the neighborhood is you want to create the image. You want to create the identity of the neighborhood. And that's different than the border identity. I'm talking about the recognition. When people think of that neighborhood, what do they think about? You want to avoid any copyright issues. You want to make sure that it's totally different than what anybody else has done. You also want to go big with this. Don't be scared to spend some money. You want to definitely outpace or make it that the barrier of entry for the next guy that comes along, when they look at it, they're not going to fly a helicopter up and have digital images, made of that particular neighborhood. Back when we did this to, for example, Lockengren. Nowadays, it's not a big deal with a drone. You can get an image like this, but back in the day, it was very difficult to get one. Well, that was a high barrier of entry. Basically, you want to make sure that when that image is circulated, that you use it for everything when it comes to that neighborhood that you're marketing and that you're synonymous with that image. You can see here with the lake, I've got it watermarked. That particular image there, it's a funny story. One of the local banks actually came to me that was putting a branch in the strip model or in the strip mall right outside the gates of the lake, it's actually right next to where my office is. And they wanted to use this particular image for their wall. They were going to do a big 20 by 20 image on the wall, and they wanted to use it. They said, "Hey, Andrew, can we use your, the Lake Lockengren image?" And I said, "Well, you know what? It's copyrighted. I'm going to have to get permission." And the reality of it is I only own the rights to that for marketing purposes. So I'm happy to give it to you, but the only caveat is that you have to have picture provided by Andrew Gaydosh and Associates. So right now on this wall at the bank, I've got this massive logo on the wall that's provided by me. And again, what kind of credibility does that give me when every day those guys are going in there paying their bills or doing banking, and they see, my image on the wall with provided by Andrew Gaydosh and Associates? That's kind of that's a big deal for free marketing.
It's huge. That's awesome.
Yeah. So the second thing that's really, really critical is create the database. So you have to have the audience, and you have to have where you're going to maintain this audience. So have a very strong, basically CRM. And if you have that CRM, you can then start to build. It's really the lifeblood of that area. It's got all the notes. It's got everything that you ever need to know about those particular people that are in it, because really your business is the people that are in the community. So you have to have a strong CRM. There's no doubt that that's probably the most important thing that you can do when you're starting to build. It's like the foundation. It doesn't
have to be, it can be whatever, right? I mean, you use, even for your CRM, Agent 2000, right? So,
we used Agent 2000 for years, and we're migrating. We still use it for certain pieces of our stuff. But we're currently using another one that's it's RealVolve. It's a nice CRM. It's got a lot of things, but that kind of replaced our Infusionsoft. But we still have Infusionsoft. We're using that for other kind of fulfillment orders and things like that. But even Market Maker, it's got a huge. It'd be perfect for this. Sync has its own back end deal, so it doesn't really matter what you use as long as you're using something that has the ability to maintain those records.
Love it.
The questions I get asked all the time is, hey, how do you get the data? Like, how do you initially go into a new neighborhood and not bootstrap it the whole time? Back in the day with Lockengren, and by the way, we have about 65% market share there. We built that from the ground up, and a lot of it was just grassroots. Everybody I ever had a chance to meet, I would make a note on a piece of paper, and then when I got back to the office, I would enter into my old school database and have notes, and it was always there. So that's how we were tagging people and creating different segments of the population that we would, want to market to for specific things, depending on what type of home they owned or what kind of interests that they had. But you could buy that data. It's nowadays with Kohl's data or LexisNexis. You can go out and buy data for neighborhoods. You can investigate with the local resident directories. A lot of times neighborhoods will have directories, which is it's like a gold mine. In Yankee Trace, there was a neighborhood directory that I was able to get, and it has a lot of phone numbers and at least has a list of who's there. Initiate Facebook boost. So our strategy there is we would create, and we're going to talk about events or reasons why people would want to have more information, but we would create a social media boost in that area, and then we would try to drive them back to one of our community websites or community Facebook groups. And how we would do that is we'd say, okay, we've got this, say for a block party, for example, block party is going to happen this month. Make sure you go to the Lock and Grin community page for details on what time and who's going to be there, what to bring. So everything, whether it would be a Facebook boost or a postcard that we were sending out, everything was trying to not give them all the information so that they would then have enough information to know where to find the real information. And when they did that, obviously we'd capture their information. Because when you're doing a Facebook boost or you're doing a postcard campaign, you don't know who they are that's receiving it at the end until they come back to you and they join your group. Once they join your group, you got them exactly where you want them. You have any questions on that, John?
No, that's great. It's, getting the data, man. That's the gold, right? You want all their information of every person in the neighborhood.
Yeah, there's no question. And we'll say this a ton of times. The person that controls the media is going to be controlling our business in the future. And there's no doubt. I'm very, 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 very convinced of that. I know we talk about podcasts and we'll get into all that kind of stuff later, but the reality of it is we're all jockeying to get eyeballs or ears on the message that we're going to send. And then we can then turn around and redirect them with the content that we want when it comes to buying real estate. Bootstrap it. Obviously these are just, natural things that you guys all know. And don't ever forget to volunteer. And when you volunteer, you have to give before you get. And for those people that are don't know anybody in the neighborhood, it's like, hey, I can't do that in that neighborhood. Well, guess what? If you go out and meet some people and ask what the community needs, start a group that's going to like a task force. We got involved with a lot of community events, like a neighborhood playground event where how can we help redo the playground equipment? We started a nice committee for that. Then we went on and did a walking path, and we were involved in a lot of things that were important to the community. These were not things that we were always like that was on our agenda, but we went out to the community and said, hey guys, what do you need? How can we help you? Usually there's somebody that's out there that has the effort, or is willing to put forth the effort, has the time and energy, that they just don't have the resources. So maybe you partner with them and you provide the resources, and you then together, that builds a lot of, I guess you'd say, credibility on your end when you're helping people, because it goes back to you got to give before you get. And that's one of the mainstays that we preach in our core values. It's something that you have to continue to do. It'll all come back to us in the long run. That's not the reason you do it, but that's, from a business standpoint, it does make good sense. So on to the next slide here. System implementation. What kind of things are we doing? And this is kind of a summary. Obviously we're going to hit up the websites, the social media, the marketing. Within the marketing, we've got a lot of different things that we do, from the newsletters to the neighborhoods. We'll kind of clip through this real quick. How are we doing on time, John?
We've got a good 22 minutes, so we're good.
All right. So I'll cruise through some of these things. Are kind of the obvious, but you've got the purpose of the website. This is really, really important for you to know. Your website for your community is not something to showcase you. It really needs to be a site that looks like the community HOA. You don't want to be, there's a fine line. You don't want to act like you're the HOA from a fraudulent standpoint, but you want to give the appearance that when somebody goes there, that it looks like an HOA site and it brings a lot of credibility to it. The purpose of the site is to educate the community and the prospective buyer and to position you as the expert in the neighborhood. Well, how do you do that? Well, number one is you got to buy a really, really strong domain name. And in that case, we would always buy the .coms if we can, even if it cost you a little bit of money. It cost me a small fortune to buy yankeetrace.com, but in the long run, it was the best thing that we could do. If I plan on being in the business for another 20, 30 years, it makes a lot of sense. So don't chintz on the right domain name. Again, look like the official site. So how do you do that? So when you have your information, you're not a focal point of that site until you go to real estate. Once you get to the real estate tab and they click on real estate, bam, it's all about you and nobody else. It's like you're the only realtor in the world. But up to that point, you can be stealth about it in that, for example, when we have photos and things like that, I always have product placement. Like we just did a big deal in Yankee Trace for a Halloween party. Well, I made sure that I parked our golf cart right in front of the tent with our logo on the golf cart. So when we're taking pictures of the actual event, that it actually is showing that, hey, Gaydosh is here, but who's this Gaydosh guy? For those that know us, it reinforces it. For those that don't, when they finally do see us, it's like, oh my gosh, I've seen that guy everywhere. So that's where you got to be smart about it. And at the same time, very stealth about it. Watermark your pictures. Do a lot of stuff that people can't turn around and kind of steal your images, so that you're protected in that way as well. Let's see. We talked about that. Great content. So, what are you putting on there? Why are people going to go to your site? Obviously, you have to have great content. They're not going to want to go there. The history is really, really important because, again, it's not a home finding site. It's a site to educate people on the community, what the community is all about, showcase the culture, showcase all the things that they're looking for when they're in that investigative stage. You want to have a question and answer section, like frequently asked questions. They can get their answers quickly and they think that you're the one providing it because they're ultimately going to know it's your site. We talked about a strong name. And then, the last thing here that we talk about is every time we're doing any kind of Facebook Lives or any video, we want to end up with whatever your tagline is within that neighborhood. And I've chosen to go with yankeetrace.com or lockandgrin.com or, your Black Oak real estate specialist. Whatever that is, you need to have that as your tagline at the end, so you're constantly reinforcing that along with all your video content and everything else you're doing. Here's just a few examples of the websites. Here's just lockandgrin.com. That's got a video. That's why that's a little bit dark on the top there. It's a little bit more vibrant, but it's a video that plays. You can tell here at the top, both of these are kind of similar. We've tried to create a design in our website that's uniform, and then we've got a parent company that would be the andrewgaydosh.com that we're revamping, and then you have these subsidiary websites that are community sites that all feed together, and they're pretty sweet and they're scalable. So that's where I guess you need to have an overall strategy is what we're talking about there.
For sure.
The social media aspect of it, we talked about this. Who controls the media, controls the game. And, how do you do that? Well, it's really, really the best thing that we've done so far from a social media standpoint is to create community groups in Facebook. That's a big, big deal for you guys. The pages are not as interactive. So you can have a Facebook page, but the community can't interact on a Facebook page. They can just like it and they get the content that you're feeding them. A community site allows everybody to interact, allows them to post their own content. You want it to be a living, breathing kind of animal. And when you get there, the whole goal is to do kind of the whole whip effect where you're doing 4 or 5 posts that are on there that are community related, and then that 5th or 6th post is real estate related. It basically helps with the algorithms to get you to be seen by more. And naturally, those people that are in your community group are going to get a lot of your stuff automatically because that's just the way Facebook works. If you post something and you're part of that group, you're going to get a notification of that. These are just some of the things you guys can look at and see what's there.
Talk about the guidelines. Talk about the guidelines. It's just because this is really, really key, really important to make sure that you have control of the pages.
Yeah, that is critical. We learned the hard way, especially when you get into these groups. communities, as you know, there's a lot of hot topics. In our case, anytime there was a big capital improvement spend, nobody ever thinks that the community's managing their money the way they should. So you have people on there that are saying that they wouldn't normally say face to face. They're very they're willing to say a lot of things behind the computer screen. So we made rules where when you sign up, there's a clear directive as to what the site's purpose is. The purpose is not to discuss hot topics. The purpose is to showcase the community in a positive light. We had a lot of rules that we made up. We also had questions that they had to answer before they get accepted, like, are you a resident of the community? And, what we do is we only allow businesses to be part of that community Facebook group if they're one of our preferred vendors. So it gives us a little bit of teeth in who's saying and what they're saying. And at the same time, it could be a revenue generating source for you on your preferred vendor side of things, because we have other things that we do, like the moving van advertisement. We have a window vision, which we'll show you a picture of later. That's like an interactive screens on our office outside of one of our communities, and those people our vendors can advertise there. And as a perk, we let them post on our community site. So those are all things that kind of come into play. But make sure you get a handle on that and monitor it, and don't be.
Delete those posts, right? If they post them in there, it's part of your guidelines, and get them off of there.
Right. Yeah. And you don't want to be, I think in these situations, you want to be neutral. You don't want to be the one that's scrubbing the content. You want to be the one that is scrubbing the purpose of what it is. Meaning, if it doesn't fit within your rules, take it out. But you can't choose what somebody posts and what they don't post. But if it doesn't conform to the rules, you have the right to take it out of there.
Perfect.
Okay, cool. So social media continued. We do a really nice job of going and finding things that are compelling to the community. What things are important to them for them to know. We've had interviews with the community leaders, the HOA presidents, capital improvement projects. Anytime I see anything going on, I'll stop. I'll jump out of the car. I'll Facebook Live it, and I'll run up to whoever's doing whatever they're doing and do kind of a real non-polished interview, like, hey, what are you doing over here? What's going on? Oh, we're building a new maintenance shed. Well, tell me about it. How big is it? It's not, it has to be real polished. It's just real life stuff. Open, real conversations. People like to know what's going on in the neighborhood. And doesn't need to always look the greatest. It just needs to be open and real. Local business highlights. That's cool. You can go out to if you're like, hey man, there's not a lot going on in my neighborhood. What kind of content should I get? Well, what's your favorite restaurant in the neighborhood? Do it. Ask a question on your site. Hey guys, what's your favorite Mexican restaurant? What's your favorite Italian restaurant? And then go to those restaurants. Ask the owner if you mind if you do a showcase of their neighborhood, a little sit down. Tell us about your community. Tell us about your history. There's tons of content out there that people love to have. You just need to go out and find it. And there's really no excuse not being able to come up with content. Lastly here, the events. And this is what the cornerstone to kind of hold everything together for us. We are huge on events. And, basically we like to do an event every quarter for our existing AGA business. That's kind of like our customer appreciations and all those kind of things. So we do the events for our regular business, but then we do these macro events in our neighborhoods, which are really, really effective. And if you think about it, the events that you do that's the cheese that you're using to put out there on the social media and in the postcards. Hey, to find out more information on this event, go to this, and then vice versa. The events are content for the social media posts and the Facebook and on the postcards. So what I mean by that is that you can't really have one without the other and do it effectively. An example of what we did with our Halloween deal was the latest deal. We had a big Halloween party in the neighborhood. We provided drinks as people were coming down, as the kids were trick-or-treating. We had all kinds of stuff for them and for the adults, and a couple of adult beverages and hot dogs and chili and the whole deal. Well, we actually sent postcards out telling people that that's what we were doing. And then on the flip side of it, we had the social media content of the events to turn back and put out on the postcard to say, hey, thank you for everybody that joined us. So it just gives everybody you're creating content and you're creating a reason for those touches that you're doing when you do them. These are some of the social media examples. We got the community group in Lock and Grin. We got the neighborhood group in Yankee Trace. This is just something that I feel like you need to really think about. Anything that you do, you've got to do big the more you get going. Of course, you can't do it the first year, but as you get going, sometimes you're going to probably want to set the bar so high that the competition isn't going to want to do what you're doing. In this situation, be very, very creative. The connection, there has to be some type of connection to the community in some case. Has to be relevant. You always want to brand everything. Ideally, I love to have shelf life on a lot of the things that we do, a lot of the marketing pieces. If I'm going to buy a gift for somebody, I don't want it to be a perishable good. I want it to be something that's going to stick around for a while. And again, it has to dovetail, or at least I like it to dovetail into the social media, into the culture that you're doing. We do a huge, massive fireworks presentation in one of our communities. It's a huge budget, and we get about 12,000 people to show up to this event. But the great thing about it is we don't host all 12,000 people. We provide the fireworks, and the people show up to individual homes, people's houses around the lake. So other people are helping us with the event. We just provide some of the things that are there, like the bands. We have a couple bands that play. But these are big time events that the average agent probably wouldn't want to spend the budget on. And then we go out and we try to underwrite some of those costs through our vendors and through the people that also do business in that community, that we are able to leverage those relationships. And it's a benefit to them, and it's a benefit to us as well. Here's an example of some of the social media stuff that we do. This Drew the Blue Cooler. So we give out blue coolers at closings, and it started out as boat like coolers. We gave people on the lake. Everybody loved them. And then people off the lake started saying, "Hey, I don't have a blue cooler. Where's my blue cooler?" They would start sending us pictures of them in exotic places with this cooler. So we kind of came up with its own kind of personality, really is what it is. We created a Facebook page, Drew the Blue Cooler, and we have instructions on the cooler, as you can see there. It tells people where to go to, what Facebook URL, where they could go post pictures of them with Drew in crazy places, and it's become kind of a fun thing that people do. The other thing, it's become a little bit of a status symbol, meaning that you go to a party in the communities that we work, and you might find 50, I'm not kidding, 50 coolers sitting around. People have like Sharpies that they've written their names on them because everything is awesome. Which is pretty neat. But we incorporate. So as we've gone through these deals, and then we do another iteration of the system. So it started out just a cooler giveaway. Then it started out as its own Facebook presence. Then it started out as us being able to leverage our Zillow reviews. When we give the cooler, there's a card that's in the pocket that says, "Hey, you're one step away from being enrolled in the VIP program for Andrew Gaydosh and Associates. This is what you have to do. Go to this page and log on and like this, and then also give us a Zillow review, and we'll enroll you in the VIP." So all these things kind of go together and are intertwined, and it just kind of flows together. You can't quite see it all initially, but as you make some of these moves, it becomes pretty obvious that you can improve on them and incorporate other parts of your business into those things that you're doing. This is something that we did where actually basically wrote and produced a theme song for one of our communities, which is pretty cool. It's again, it's a guerrilla move, meaning you do something really, really big. How it was is I was listening to a band. We were in Put in Bay, and this band had a really good song, and I felt like it could probably work within the context of the dream that we were trying to sell lake houses. So I hired and commissioned the artist, and I said, "Hey, listen, if I rewrite your song, will you perform it? I want to buy the rights to it for promotion and create a theme song for our neighborhood." And it's worked out really well. We have a video that goes with it, and it sells the dream. Why would you want to move to the lake? It talks about some of the things that we do at the lake. It talks about double bubbles. For those of you that know us, know we like our double bubbles, which are kind of a fun giveaway thing that we do as well. So again, it just sets the bar really, really high that people are not going to be able to probably do that real easy. And it kind of keeps the competition at a low mark in a lot of ways.
We'll post the promo video for everybody to check out with the replay.
I'm sorry, say that again.
So we'll get the we'll post that we'll post the promo video with the replay so everybody can check that out.
Cool, great, thank you. I might even have a new one for you too. So check with me on that.
Nice.
So again, when you start evolving these neighborhoods, you know, you're not doing this day one, but in this case, we put together a sales and information center for our Lockingren. So this is a strip mall that sits right outside of the gates of Lockingren, which is one of our communities, and it's all about Lockingren. I mean, you walk in, it says right on the door, Lockingren Sales and Information Center. We've got our window vision, which has all just of our properties that are in that community. You know, in order to get on there, you've got to be listed with us. We've got our vendors, preferred vendors over here. You've got big scale murals inside. You know, everything that you do is related directly to that specific neighborhood. So again, it creates the identity that we are the people that are the you know, the main folks that have the most credibility in that neighborhood. This is just another giveaway that we have for double bubbles, which is just kind of like a little fun shot glass. T-shirts. You know, if I could tell you guys anything, this is how I started in Lockingren and in Yankee Trace, is we just printed T-shirts like crazy. Every one of our events, we would have a T-shirt. I would go hand deliver the T-shirts to people. Everybody would say, why would you spend, you know, 2 days delivering T-shirts when you have all this stuff to do? Well, it gave me the opportunity for 5 minutes to sit and have a quick conversation with our clients or people that I wanted to be clients and have just a quick conversation. They knew that I had a carload of other stuff to get going, so I wasn't wasting time, but I thought enough of them to stop by and give them a T-shirt for whatever event it was. And back in the day, we weren't even doing the fireworks yet. We were just giving out T-shirts for the 4th of July weekend. And then that evolved into the fireworks, and then it evolved into the bands, and now it's a whole freaking weekend or a whole week-long event. But you see these everywhere. They have great shelf life. They're not real expensive. You can print up, you know, a ton of them for not a lot of money, and you know, we give them out like crazy. So I would highly recommend.
What was the time frame when you started doing the T-shirts to where it is now? Give them some context on kind of, you know, how that's evolved over the years.
You know, the first T-shirts that we did we were kind of going back, because every year I'd put the date, the year of the event, and I think we found some that go back as early as 1998, believe it or not.
Damn.
And initially it was just, you know, I think we printed 50 of them up, and it was like, I survived the weekend, 4th of July weekend. And then as we started with different events, like this picture right here on the right it's a picture of one of our 9-hole events. It was a progressive party. So you could do this in any neighborhood where you could take it was a meet and greet. So the whole premise of it was, hey, let's invite all the new people in the neighborhood to meet the existing neighborhood people. And let's create an environment where people could move through the community at different levels and have, you know, in this case, it started out with having a beer, and then it evolved where we took out the alcohol out of providing alcohol. People bring their own alcohol because it's just a big progressive block party is what it is. And now the homeowners that are hosting are providing, you know, just like finger food or pizza or whatever, not like a full-blown meal, but a snack or hot dogs or whatever. And that's been huge. So again, it creates another opportunity for all the social media, creates another opportunity for more T-shirts. I mean, it's just, and more importantly, what happens in this environment is if you are somebody that moves into our neighborhood and maybe you buy a home that we had listed and you have your own agent, that agent's probably not going to be involved in the community because they've gone on down the road. We're going to invite you to our events. We want to introduce you to all of our friends. We want you to meet everybody else that's in the neighborhood. Well, if you take care of those people, you know, you adopt them, adopt a client is what we call them, they're going to probably end up working with you in the long run if they see that you are the person that's giving back to the community the most and that is most knowledgeable in the community. So it's kind of a nice, again, space to create the event, not only for just certain purposes, but for a myriad of purposes that are out there. Shock and awe. Okay, we'll get through this pretty quick. We've got, so, you know, you want to tell everybody basically that you're the specialist in the neighborhood. And I'll have a card for every neighborhood we specialize in that's specific to that neighborhood. So if you're in Yankee Trace, on the back of my card, it has Yankee Trace Specialist in the front. It's consistent with all of our cards.
Yeah.
The direct
That's
mail
a ninja move
campaigns.
right there. That's definitely a golden nugget with the cards that position you that way. So that's huge.
Yeah, and the side that has the neighborhood specific stuff, usually that image that you created is along with that. So on our lock and grin, we had the picture of the lake. In Yankee Trace, we had the picture of our logo by the golf course because it's a golf course community. So with all those things, everything you're doing is very consistent with your direct mail campaigns. You're telling people, hey, we're the specialists. This is what we do. This is how we do business. Some other opportunities, neighborhood publications. A lot of times there's neighborhood publications that are already there. Go to them, negotiate, pay them up front for the year. Hey, I want the biggest position in your publication, and I'm willing to pay you for it. The other thing would be neighborhood kind of, I guess, newsletters and things like that. They're out there, and there are companies that do that, that we've partnered with, that we've helped bring into communities, because I don't want to do all the administrative work every week, but you know what? It makes sense to go ahead and partner with these people that's what they do for a living. And then we go ahead and we advertise in the publications, local newspapers, homes magazines. Here's just a couple examples of some of our direct mail campaigns that we do. This one here is kind of a pretty cool, once you get going and you've actually, I can get over there. I don't know if you guys can see that, but once you get going in a community and you start having really good success, you can start touting your success. You can't do that when you first start out, so you have to borrow some success of maybe your companies or whatever else you're doing. But in this case, this is one of our most successful ones. It basically says these are the number of transactions. We're at almost 100% of the transactions, and certain, or actually in this case, this was 85% of off take. We did over 90. It wasn't a percentage. I'm sorry, that's a unit one. We did just under 100 units so far, and that's 444% more than our next competitor. And we changed that now to say 444% more experience. Now it says 444% more experience than selling your home. So just little tweaks that we've been doing lately have kind of made a difference. Not a big difference, but like I said, you can't be perfect from the beginning. You just have to kind of work at it as you go, and don't be scared to get out there and try it to begin with. Let's see here. Our schedule. Are we okay on time, John? Are we on a hard?
I think this is kind of key. Share up the events, and then the mayor's page is perfect. So this is
okay. Good. So we like to do. I kind of talked about the events. So our game plan now is to create mini mayors within our team. We want people to join our team that we can help them become a mayor of their neighborhood, and we can do a done-for-you system and scale it. So we've identified certain things within that we do that I think that are easily scalable and aren't real expensive and have really good community participation. We like to do a lot of those in the communities, but as far as our actual big time events, we try to do at least a quarter. And that's real important, that when you start looking at, the frequency, you want to do at least one per quarter and a lot of mini events. And then what's kind of neat about this is that we can turn around and we can use the content of these events, like I talked about, for the social media, but we can also use the neighborhood relationships to come. The people that are in our neighborhoods are invited to the big events that we do as an organization, as an Andrew Gaydosh and Associates team. We invite a lot of those neighborhood people, if they fit within that same market, to the big events, and vice versa. If it's a neighborhood event like the Blues Fest that we do in Lock and Grin, we're going to invite our entire sphere of influence that's in that Eaton area that's located in Lock and Grin, but we're going to invite them to that event because it kind of covers both. They're our clients. They're going to benefit from that, or they're going to have an enjoyment of both of those. So these are just some of the events that we've done over the years, and we can go into that in more detail at a later time, but it's a lot of fun to get these things going. Let's see here. We talked about the VIP. program. We've got different levels, so different events, different people get invited to different events depending on the size of the venue. These are some of our results. Last year, these are year-to-date results. In Lake Lockingren, we're at 55% market share of the whole neighborhood, 93% market share of the waterfront stuff. And this Yankee Trace is a new one that we've just gone into the last couple of years, and we're at about 10.5% already, which is pretty exciting. That's growing pretty quick. Creating mini mayors, just talked about that. We're trying to go in, and these are just some of the things that you guys can do for your clients or for yourself, or if you're a team member for your team. Create community websites for them, community Facebook pages, the direct marketing, the giveaways, the events, all that kind of stuff dovetails in. And we're just trying to make it so that it's easy for our agents to be able to, take this and run by saying, hey, I need 10 boo baskets for Halloween. We provide them to the team. They run out and they take care of. So they're basically the boots on the ground. They're the ones that are there for all the events that they're doing within the neighborhood. We're just providing the structure and the invites and everything that goes along with it. They just have to execute the day of the event plans.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
It's an amazing retention tool for your key people, right? So we know the number one fundamental flaw in the team model is that your key people will fall out the top because of you're just at a certain point within the business model to not be able to provide additional value and opportunity. And so, what Andrew has done an amazing job with, right, is that, he had this idea, he proved it in Lockingren, and then, so he had concept, and then he took and he's proved it in Yankee Trace, really focusing on Yankee Trace just the last couple of years, really, if that full throttle. And then, now it's proven and now it's running with the mini mayors, started with his top sales guy. And now he's got a great retention tool for his key people that, that's additional value that, why would you ever leave it once, think about leaving you when you're doing all of the, to help create them to be the mini mayor and doing a lot of the stuff, and it scales you, right? That was the whole reason to do this, because you can't kiss any more babies and shake any more hands than what you're already doing.
Yeah, that's funny. John and I, we kind of laid this out a couple of years ago and said, the bandwidth is pretty much used up within the two areas. And when we build out Yankee Trace, we did it with a different model, right? I didn't want to have to be involved like I was in the Lockingren, but I still am involved. And then we said, okay, now that we proved it, it doesn't matter if it's me or Jason or Jen or Mark or anybody else, everybody can do this. They just don't have the time. They're like the rest of us. They're jamming through their day. They don't have the time to put together boo baskets and little trinkets and things like that our agents need. This thing went viral when we did this. It was kind of a cool little thing that we gave away. We just started them in the community. We sent out boo baskets, and 12 of them in each community, and let the community then recycle them and take them through, and it went viral and everything. So that's kind of cool. Anybody wants to talk about any of these programs, give me a call back. We'll have this entire presentation loaded up somewhere so you guys can see it on your computer. And, I guess the main thing for us, I do want, you guys, you're welcome to join my neighborhood mayors community page. This is for agents that are out there that are looking to kind of find out what we're doing within our neighborhoods and how we're doing it, and for us to collaborate on new ideas, because, this is just scratching the surface of what we think we can do. But, we may have agents in other parts of the country that say, man, I hit a home run with this particular event, or I hit a home run with this particular strategy. We want you to jump on Neighborhood Mayors and post it up so that we can all kind of help each other out. So check that out, that Neighborhood Mayor site. It's pretty cool. And we'd love to help you guys out in any other way we can.
Man, that's awesome. It really is amazing to see how much this has grown and the momentum that it's taken on, and just an amazing job. And I think the key lesson is that just start with it, start within what you can, your budget, and build upon it. I remember you were just doing one event, and then it turned to 2, and it turned to 3. Now it's 4. Right. So just like you said, get started. Get into that neighborhood mayors group on Facebook. It'll help you collapse time and collaborate with a lot of amazing individuals across the country. Anything else that you want to just kind of leave everybody with as we wrap up?
You know, the only thing I could tell you is that don't try to be perfect. I mean, this stuff, if I looked at this, 5-6 years ago, I would have been like paralyzed by like, oh my God, I don't have time to sometimes it's 5 o'clock and I haven't, gone to the bathroom. I had to pee since breakfast because you're so busy. I mean, don't take it and say, man, I'm paralyzed because it's just too much. Start out by doing exactly what I did. Put together some flyers, walk around the neighborhood and tell everybody you're the specialist. And it's cheap to do that. And, on the flyers, you can put whatever you want. Hey, you got a buyer looking for a house. And there are inexpensive ways to get started. And then every step you make, you iterate on that step. Hey, I can do it better next time. I can do it better. What about this thing? So it's just like anything. Just start it. Don't be perfect. Going back and looking at some of the stuff we did early on would be laughable, but it was better than anybody else was doing at the time. And I think that would be my best advice for you guys.
Man, it's awesome. And man, I thank you. I can't thank you enough. Appreciate you. Amazing, amazing call. Thanks for adding value and really being a true expert mentor and helping everybody out. For all of you guys, we'll get this posted back up in the Facebook group. We'll share all the deliverables with it. Just make sure that you give Andrew some love and definitely share your guys' biggest takeaway. And we'll look forward to seeing you next time on the next episode of Expert Mentors. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, real quick, if I could say this too, when you guys are on that neighborhood mayor site, please help me out, interact on it, ask questions and do whatever you need to do, okay? That's what's going to make that site go a little bit bigger. And one last shout out, I want to give a shout out to Ronnie Tesori. She's my girl. She's one of our EXP honey badgers. I hope she's on here right now. Love you, babe. We'll see you guys.
That's awesome. All right, we'll see you guys.
All right, see you.